Stephen Bates's history book, The Poisoner, The Life and Times of Victorian England's Most Notorious Doctor, 2014, delves into the infamous story of Dr. William Palmer. Palmer, a surgeon-turned-gambler, was hanged in 1856 for poisoning his gambling companion, John Cook, to steal his winnings. The evidence suggested this was not an isolated crime. Palmer likely murdered several friends and family members after first taking out life insurance policies on them. The case became a Victorian media sensation, earning Palmer the moniker Prince of Poisoners. Bates weaves a narrative grounded in historical records and contemporary insights into the psychology of serial killers, with Kirkus reviews describing the book as a pleasantly instructive social history. Bates begins the story on June 14, 1856, the day of Palmer's execution outside Stafford Prison. The hanging drew a crowd of over 30,000 people, underscoring the widespread fascination with the case. From this dramatic opening, Bates shifts back to 1855, where Palmer and Cook are at a Shrewsbury race meeting. After a day and night of drinking and gambling, Cook had amassed £3,000 in winnings, an enormous sum equivalent to nearly £500,000 today, while Palmer had lost heavily, borrowing recklessly from moneylenders. With no way to repay his debts, Palmer accompanied Cook back to his hometown of Rugeley, Staffordshire, where Cook decided to rest. Shortly after, Cook fell gravely ill. 5 days later, he died in agony, writhing and screaming in pain. Suspicion quickly fell on Palmer. Cook's stepfather, distrustful of the doctor, discovered that Cook's betting book and financial papers were missing. Investigators learned from Cook's housemaid that Palmer had sent pills and broth to the sick man. The housemaid, after tasting the broth, fell violently ill herself. Local residents were unsurprised. Palmer's wife Annie, 4 of their children, and his alcoholic older brother Walter had all died suddenly in recent years. Both Annie and Walter had recently taken out life insurance policies, but the payouts were contentious. One of Annie's premiums hadn't been paid, and the Prince of Wales Insurance Office had refused to honor Walter's policy, hinting at foul play. Palmer, meanwhile, claimed Cook's £3,000 winnings as his own. Known as a Rugeley native who trained as a surgeon, Palmer abandoned medicine after inheriting wealth, choosing instead to pursue a lifestyle of gambling, horse racing, and debauchery. He developed a reputation as a heavy drinker, a seducer of respectable women, and a companion to unsavory characters. Bates's account paints a vivid portrait of a man whose charm and ambition masked a dark and murderous streak. Despite his crimes, Dr. William Palmer was a gentleman of independent means, making it nearly unthinkable for many Victorians to accept that someone of his social standing could be a cold-blooded serial murderer. Initially, the evidence against him was largely circumstantial. During John Cook's post-mortem examination, a pivotal moment occurred when the contents of Cook's stomach were spilled after a doctor was jostled. Witnesses later accused Palmer of orchestrating the disruption. Palmer also attempted to sabotage the investigation by bribing a boy transporting post-mortem samples to overturn his cart. When this failed, he tried to convince the postmaster to intercept and hand over the analysis results before they reached the county coroner's office. Further evidence emerged when a chemist's assistant admitted selling Palmer strychnine just days before Cook's death. Investigators exhumed the bodies of Palmer's wife Annie and his brother Walter, finding signs of strychnine poisoning. In December 1855, Palmer was arrested, though he vehemently maintained his innocence. Even then, the evidence remained largely circumstantial. His trial, held at the Old Bailey in 1856, was moved to London from Staffordshire to ensure impartiality, as public opinion in his hometown was overwhelmingly against him. The trial captivated the nation. Strychnine, a relatively new and deadly poison, had stoked widespread fears of poisoning, already heightened by earlier arsenic-related crimes. Palmer's bourgeois status made his case particularly shocking and compelling. Major newspapers provided exhaustive coverage, and his notoriety seeped into popular culture. Queen Victoria referred to this horrid Dr. Palmer in her journal. Ballads were written about him, and Staffordshire pottery makers produced figurines bearing his name, often repurposed from generic molds. One enterprising print seller, unable to secure an authentic portrait of Palmer, sold old lithographs of politician Richard Cobden labeled as Palmer, profiting handsomely. Palmer was ultimately found guilty of John Cook's murder, though he never confessed to this crime or any others. Notably, no traces of strychnine were found in Cook's body, likely due to the era's primitive chemical analysis methods. Despite the overwhelming circumstantial evidence, doubts about his guilt lingered. Bates aligns with contemporary commentators, describing Palmer as a man brought low by his own venality, a figure whose greed and arrogance led to his downfall. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, and be sure to subscribe. Thank you.